Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Free Salon Education. This is something that we're going to try out maybe on Tuesdays, so you guys got to let us know in the comments below what you think. Do you think you could turn that down? I don't know, music's just in the background. So let me know what you guys think of this class. Today what I want to do is I want to make this as interactive as possible. A lot of you guys should be logging in and following along, so make sure that you post in the chat. Christina is watching the chat. I can't see it because we're over here. So if you have any questions, post them about what we're doing or anything else, and then we'll try to answer those questions as we go along. I've got with me Carly. She's brand new to our salon, so she's going to be assisting. I'm also going to be walking her through the cut as well. Today what I want to focus on in the class is a dry haircut. It's not necessarily that I would always do this haircut dry, but I want to show you guys my favorite dry haircutting techniques. So we've got a couple different camera angles that we're going to be switching to, so hopefully you guys can get the full view of everything that we're doing. But again, if you have questions as we go along, just post them in the comments below. We want this to be a very intimate setting, and we're going to be doing this class for about the next 30 to 40 minutes as we go along. So, so we're going to get started. This is the mannequin head that I'm going to be working on. It does have a previous cut from one of the latest vlogs that we did. We did a face frame on it. So it's a really typical client situation. That's kind of what I like about it. So we're going to transform this from this longer haircut into a bob haircut using dry haircutting techniques. So first things first, you want to section off the mannequin. She's currently wearing a side parting. So you could see the angle that we created here going off to the side. So what I'm going to do is base this haircut off of that side parting. So we're going to section down center back. So I'm going to turn just like this. And Carly, if you want to, yep. So we'll go straight down center back. Can you hold that real quick? And then what I'm going to do is section from the occipital bone over to behind the ear. Now you guys see me do that a lot in different haircuts. So then when I take the hair nice and tight over to the side, I'm going to clip it away. And I'll show you guys on this side as well. Just like that. Comb it over to the side. And then slide that clip just up and under there. The reason I like to put the clips this way is it helps hold it. A lot of people just shove the clip down, but then that leaves that opening of the clip and then the hair falls down. So if you want to keep it nice and tight, slide your clips up and under. Also, some people, things that I've learned throughout the last 14 years of doing hair is that they'll aim their clips in different directions based on the technique that they're going to do. So if, let's say you're doing a color technique and you want to do this panel, let's say red, and this panel black. That obviously you're not doing that, but this one I would put up to say that I was going to color it this color, and then I would put the other one down to say I was going to color it the opposite color. Just helps keep you guys organized. Now, can you hand me the that Paul Mitchell smoothing iron? So one thing that I like to make sure is that you guys can see in this. Let me zoom in a little bit. So right here, there's a little bit of a slight wave to the hair. I don't want that in there. So what I'll do is take a nice tight tension, take my iron and put it in right like that, and just smooth it out a bit, because you do not want to have any creases or bumps before you cut the hair. It's just that's gonna make the hair react a way that you don't want it to. So I'm gonna work my way through here and iron through it. And then that's good. That works for me. There you go, Carly. So now I've got YS Park 339 comb. This I use quite often. I've also got the Mizutani Puffin scissor. This is a dry cutting scissor. Now the difference, can you grab me another, like a plain scissor out of there?
As you get into the scissor,
yeah.
Smooth Z is asking, can you use any shear to cut dry hair?
Yes. So that's basically what I'm going to talk about now, because the dry cutting scissor, as opposed to the wet cutting scissor, the biggest difference is the size of the blade. So anytime you're working with the scissor, I love Mizutani scissors. It's what we sell on Free Salon Education. Now, the reason I really love these scissors is they're handmade in Japan. They're pretty much the only scissor that I know of that is actually handmade by a craftsman that has been doing this for hundreds of years. So the detail work that goes in these scissors is awesome. The other thing is, when you look at the breakdown of a scissor, the fattest part of the scissor is always the most powerful part. Then as it gets weaker, or as it gets smaller towards the tip, then it becomes not quite as strong. So anytime that you're doing dry cutting, you need a really strong blade. And the reason you need a strong blade is because if you're trying to cut lines in dry hair, the fatter the blade, the more power you're going to get behind it, so you're going to get the cut that you're looking for. The other reason I like having a dry cutting scissor is because when you do dry haircuts, it dulls your scissor blade. So I don't want to have a scissor blade, that my main scissor that I cut precision with, dulling as I go in and cut dry. So you use this one for your dry cutting, and then you don't have to worry about messing up your regular scissor. You can dry cut with any scissor you want. You're just going to have to sharpen your scissor more often, and the life of your scissor isn't going to be as long, because the more often that you sharpen it, obviously the least amount it's going to last. Now, with that being said, I've dry cut with precision scissors for over 10 years, and I still didn't need another one. So so you don't have to really worry about.
So we have a few dry cutting shears in our shop. Would you recommend any particular one for someone on a budget?
So this is the one for somebody on a budget. So this one I think is around $500. We usually have some kind of discount or deal on it. So you're looking at spending upwards of high 400s for it currently on our website. Now, the thing with this one, I love, first off, I love the blacksmith fit handle. So that's what this one has. You can see that it's not just a round handle. A lot of scissors are very basic, and the reason they're basic is because they get made in China for $15. They're pressed quickly in a machine, and then they sell them to a company. Company stamps their name on it, and then all of a sudden they sell it for $700, right? That's not how these scissors work. They have a lot of detail work in them. So this little triangular groove sits really nice in your hand. It also has a little triangular groove here. So a lot of people that need those inserts in their scissors, a lot of times with a Mizutani scissor, you don't need the insert because of the fact that it's got all this detail work in it. Also has this nice little grip here. So this is the one that I would recommend. There's only a couple other ones that are a little bit more expensive, but honestly, this is my go-to. It's my favorite. So that's all I got to say about that. If you guys have more questions about that, feel free to ask, but I want to get started on the cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tilt the mannequin head. I'm actually going to twist this. So I'm going to tilt her forward. And I'm going to take vertical partings out of the back. Just adjust that a little bit. Oh, it's on autofocus. That's not fun. Nope, there you go. I did.
Okay.
All right, cool. So what I'm going to do is take a vertical parting straight down the center back, and then I'm going to pull the hair out just like this. Now, I've talked about this on a lot of videos, but the head shape is going to play a key role in this. So it's already sitting, everything from the occipital bone down is sitting at about a 45-degree angle, depending on the person. So what I want to do is go underneath just like this, and I'm going to start by half open, half closing the scissor. So I just work back and forth just like this. So as I push in, I close halfway, and then as I come out, I open, close halfway, and then open. You can see probably from the top angle the best. As I pull the hair out, I pinch it in my hands. Now when I pinch it, you can see the hair kind of pulls down here and pulls straight out here. What's going to happen is when I cut this, I'll get a little bit of a tail that comes out here, but then I'll get my line. That tail will cut off at the end, so you don't worry about that. So I pull the hair straight out just like this, and then I work my way up, creating my angle with that half open, half closed movement. Now, what that does, it gives me a broken line. So I'm not looking for an exact line throughout this cut. I just want a nice soft broken line. And a lot of those celebrity cuts that you see on the internet, they have a soft broken edge to them. This cut is gonna give that to them. So what I do is I take another vertical parting, I bring that over. There's not much precision to this. The only precision is really just the over direction and elevation. And then I go through and cut. I'll turn it so you guys can kind of see what's unfolding. So you can see that it's very broken. It's got a little bit of a buildup of weight in there. I'm going to go through, detail this, and soften it a bit, but that's what we're going for. So I take another vertical parting, bring it up into my hand, and I cut across. This works great on curly hair as well because of the fact that with curly hair, as you're working through it, this softens the line. So sometimes in curly hair, when you have a hard line, it builds up weight too much. So it's almost like point cutting and precision cutting at the same time. Yeah, you can't do that, pal. Okay. So now I'm going to bring the hair over direct it. He's like a vacuum. And drop it down. So now you can see right here, you can see this nice soft line throughout. So now what I'll do, once I have that soft line, I'm just going to go through, let me just make sure, yeah, we're on that angle. I'm going to go through and just soften by cutting into it just like this. Combing it down, and just working that line in.
We have a question of which way are you over directing the hair?
I'm over directing it to the center. So just slightly back, not trying to go too far. Any further past center, it gets a little bit too long and too heavy. I'm just looking for this nice soft line here. But just know, guys, it really doesn't matter as much how far I'm over directing it. Just know that the reasoning of over direction is to build up weight. So if I want to build up more weight, more length, then I'm going to over direct it further. If I want to build up less, then I'll just do a traveling guide and bring it back to the previous section.
That was getting into the next question, if you are using a stationary guide in the back.
Yeah, so currently I'm using I was using a stationary guide until I got to the very corner, and then that one I just pulled straight back. I didn't over direct it all the way. The reason I didn't want to over direct it all the way is because if I over direct it all the way to the center at this point, the head shape is starting to turn. So when the head shape starts to turn, the over direction becomes more extreme. So because the head shape's turning over, I just over direct it straight back, which gives me a similar over direction to what I was doing in the center. I hope that makes sense. So let me just try to explain it again. So when you look at the head shape curving, as I'm working through, until I get to that curve, I over direct it just back to the previous. So that gives me an angle. So you can see this is 90 degrees coming out. So that gives me an angle at this point of about 45 degrees back. Then when I get to this point at the very end, if I take that and I over direct it all the way over here, now I'm getting about a 0 degree angle based on the head shape, right? So if I have a 0 degree angle, it's going to be so much heavier here than it is here. So I want to keep everything even. So as I work around the head shape, when I get here, I just over direct it back 45 degrees, which is straight back from the head. And that keeps me with an even weight distribution throughout the cut. Okay. Hopefully I didn't overcomplicate that. All right, so next we're going to work on this side.
Okay, so somebody did ask, do you change the elevation on the sides? I think you got into that. And
yes,
if it was lifted to a 45 degree angle, I'm not sure if you explained that or not.
If I was lifting it to 45?
Yeah, because somebody we're on a little bit of a delay, so I just wanted to make sure.
So this is the other thing. When you look at the shape of the haircut, which I talked to Carly about recently, the shape of a haircut and the elevation of a haircut are two different things, right? So elevation has everything to do with how much weight you're leaving within the shape. The shape of a cut is everything horizontally. So when I was talking about my 90 degrees, that's not 90 degrees up and down. That's 90 degrees horizontally on the head shape. So if I cut this, let's say horizontal, if I'm cutting a horizontal bob, which is a video that will be coming out this week, when I'm cutting a horizontal bob, I'm controlling in the top angle, Chris. I'm controlling the shape. So right here, I have a lot of control on the shape, but then if we go to the side angle, I don't have as much control with this part right here. So horizontally, you control the shape, but you don't control this. It becomes much harder when you're holding just this little bit in your hand to work your way up the head and stay consistent. But when you work vertically, you have a lot of this, the weight in your hand or the elevation, but you don't have a lot of the shape in your hand. So vertically, it becomes very easy to control weight distribution up and down, but it becomes harder to control the shape. So that was one thing that I learned, early into hair cutting, and it just made the most sense for me, is what do you want to control within the haircut? Okay, so now when I move over to the right-hand side, I'm going to take the hair out. I'm still going to be pinching it, so I'm doing the same exact thing. Body position is similar, but now I'm working. Let me just make sure. So I was pinching it just like this, and then on this side I'm doing the same thing. The only reason I rotated is to be able to show you guys this angle here.
Would you say you do many haircuts dry?
No. But the reason I don't do a lot of haircuts dry only, but I use all of these techniques in every haircut.
Right.
So the reason I wanted to do a dry haircutting.
How about textured curly hair?
Textured curly hair is different. I will do a lot of that dry because that's how it's going to live. And also, when you cut hair dry, it softens it. And a lot of textured curly hair you want to soften. So if it was a precision bob haircut, I would do a lot of work wet, and then I would go in with it dry and just do all my detail work. Christina and I got a new puppy, and he is part of the class today. And apparently he loves eating hair. So, thanks, bud. All right. So now I just go through and I start to clean it up. Then now I'm working again on the right-hand side. This is where the head shape starts to curve in. So now I'm just coming straight back as opposed to over-directing all the way to the center back. And what I'm showing you guys today is techniques that you can use in the salon with every cut. I'm not trying to teach you guys just a haircut. So as I go through this, just know that this is techniques.
Do you always cut curly hair dry?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, it depends on how curly it is. All right, Carly. I'll flip this around, have you hold some hair again.
Is this technique you're using, they may have tuned in a little later, considered point cutting?
It's in the family of point cutting. Let's go, can you zoom out, Thad? I forgot you were there now. Thad is joining us now, running the camera. Sweet. All right, so it's in the family of point cutting, but I would not say it is point cutting, but it does a similar thing. So the similarities of that and point cutting are that it softens. The thing I like about it the most is that it's even softer than point cutting, because to create the same look if I was point cutting, I would take the hair like this, right? And then in order to get a very soft feel to it, I'd have to go vertically in point cutting. So I would work vertically through this, and it would take me a while to go through and cut this whole thing. If I come in like this, which wouldn't take me as long, I'm cutting more blocky edges into it, and then that makes it not similar to the tease cutting technique. So this is just a quicker way to work your way down the hair shaft. So now we're doing the same thing. Elevation is going to shift a little bit. So I pull the hair out. You can see the guide falling here. I pinch it in my hand just like that, and I work my way through, tease cutting away. So I want you to see, you can see the angle. I'm still creating an angle. It's just soft. So if I grab this hair up that I just cut, you can see that there is still an angle in there, but it's very broken and very soft in the haircut. Here we go. Bring this hair over. Again, over directing to the previous. That hair starts to fall, so I know that's where my guide is. You can see, nice and soft. Rounding that corner, still bringing the hair to the previous. And then the last one, I take away some of this hair. I don't use that as a guide, and I just come straight back.
Will this be available later to watch?
This will be available right after.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere, though.
Some people might have to.
Yeah, I'm sure people have to work.
And then they had a question if you were using your Mizutanis, in quote, your good shears on the mannequins.
Yes. Yes. I have been using this pair of dry cutting scissor since I've never had them sharpened, and I've had them for about 2 years. And I cut mannequins pretty much 80% of the time. So these mannequins do not have yarn, and they also are all real hair. Yes. So that's a good point, Thad. There's some cheap mannequins out there. These are pivot point mannequins that are all human hair. They're all hand laced, so they're much better quality. Don't get like a $30 mannequin and use your $500 scissors on them because it will ruin it. There is weird things within some mannequins like yarn or metal strings. Like there's some weird stuff. So make sure. I mean, I've never really seen metal. Have you seen metal, Thad, in there? Okay, like a pipe cleaner.
It just looks really wiry.
Yeah. So this is really soft human hair.
It did.
So just going through, same thing, over directing back. Now this technique, I'm just going to continue only through this panel, and then we're going to switch to a new technique to do the top part.
Could you do this haircut with the co-seam razor?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this is a great haircut for razors. You know, that's the whole purpose of this. This is very similar to doing a razor cut, but I personally love working with scissors. I also love using the carving comb just because it's an easy, quick tool, and I've found that, especially like cutting Christina's hair, she's got really thick hair. Usually, when I use a carving comb, the haircut turns out better because it's much softer. So you can see I'm still going to work on this line later, but I want to get the overall shape first, and then we'll bring that up. But you can see how it's just a nice textured kind of feel to it. Okay, now we let down the top. And the top will kind of blanket over everything. And what we're going to do in this technique, this is called the stroking technique. And what that is it's an open and close, but it's a full open and close. So when I work the hair just like this, I hold it in between my fingers. I'm no longer pinching the hair. Just like that. In fact, can you move the head over? Sweet. So just like that. Then what I'm going to do is I open up and I come down and close. So open, close, open, close. So bringing the hair out vertically, the smaller the section, the better. And I just do an open and close, and it softens that line. I'll show you guys what that looks like here. Kind of can see, but right there you get a nice soft feel to it.
So there's a question. When you say panels, how far do you consider your panel on this haircut? Like just at the tip or the of the ear would be this panel until you get to the top? Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that does make sense. So panel, to me, is whatever my section is I'm working with. So I don't know if that's the formal definition of a panel, but anytime I'm working with a section. So when I said panel, I had sectioned off to behind the ear. So when I did that, this was my current hair that I was working with. So that is my panel, right? So instead of just saying parting or section, because sectioning to me is taking a section like this, but then we section off, so it's a parting. To me, sectioning is a parting, but the panel is the full placement. I don't know if is that what they were teaching in school nowadays? Okay, cool. So here we go. Turn this a little bit. So now again, vertical, and I'm over directing this back to the previous section. Open and close. Now for me, what works best with this technique is kind of working the scissor like it was a rubber pencil. So you know how you do like, it's like a rubber scissor, right? So I like to get that kind of motion. So what I do is I put my thumb not even in the blade, in the scissor, and then I put my ring finger just a little bit into it. So it's not in there very far, so it has this movement. And then I rest my thumb on the top. So then when I bounce it, it's kind of bouncing in my fingers up and down. And then I add in my thumb just kind of moving. So when I do that, it's an open and close. So and a lot of people say they close on the way out. I don't think that's what happens. I think it's coming down and closing and opening. And then as you close, you throw the hair off of the section. So I'll try to go a little slower with this one, over directing to the previous. So as I come down, I cut, and then I open. So it's this kind of motion.
How important is head shape when doing these hair cutting techniques?
Head shape is the most important thing in hair cutting, to be honest. So, like, no matter what I'm doing, even though this is a textured cut, it's still all about weight distribution. So if I texturize it to death, but still push too much weight to the front, then I'm going to have to go in and I'm going to have to texturize it anyways, so it doesn't really matter. So I guess the quick answer to that question is head shape always matters the most. Okay, so now I've done this side. I'm going to work on the opposite side before we turn it. So now this is a little bit different. So now I'm going to be working underneath up, still creating the same angle, but like I talk about in a lot of the videos, it's all about combing. So two things that are most important in hair cutting: head shape and combing. Everybody can take hair and cut it off. It's where you comb it to that makes a great haircut. So as I work around the head shape, now I'm combing into the middle, or I'm combing into my previous section. If I were to continue the exact same way that I would comb the hair down, and then I would comb like this, and it would push the guide into the new hair, which would then stretch the guide over. And we all know that if I have this hair here, or if I pull it over here, it's going to shorten one side of the haircut. And then one side of the haircut becomes longer because we're over directing the guide. So you want to make sure, always take new hair, comb it into the guide. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, can you hear Thad, Chris?
Not really.
Not really, right? So let me repeat. So I was listening to Thad, but I'll kind of sum up your question. So Thad was saying, do you ever really talk about dry hair cutting as basically putting your signature on it, but also being something different that the client's seeing, right? Is it kind of what you're... Right. Yeah, so it definitely becomes, yeah, we'll turn that down. Dry hair cutting makes you stand out in the salon as well, and I think that's what Thad is saying. So it's something that like your client's not seeing or has maybe never seen before, so they're going to look at you as more of a professional just because you're doing techniques that that they've never seen. They don't feel like they can get anywhere else. But it's also, achieving what they need. So it's not just about, I think when I first started cutting hair, I learned the stroking technique, but didn't really know the proper use of it. So when I was in the salon doing the stroking technique, I was in school, and I had one of my little old ladies come in, and she was a perm, but she needed a haircut. So like you cut her hair first, then you perm it. Well, what happened was I tried out the stroking technique on her, and then when I went to wrap her perm, she didn't have one even line in the haircut. So when I went to wrap the perm, I couldn't get the ends in the perm rod. So that's not a good situation to use this technique, right? So if you have somebody with curly hair, you have somebody that you're trying to create texture in, they're going to wear their hair straight with a lot of texture and movement, or they're going to wear it curly and natural, then I would say this is a good technique to use. So now we've basically created what we call the dog ear. I haven't cut this part yet. I have the back cut. She already has a side fringe, which we'll cut into in a bit as well. So what I want to do is now work through the sides. And that's going to be really simple. So what I'm going to do is I'll have Carly take from parietal ridge down, because we'll call that the roof. So you can just hold this just like that, Carly. So we've got that. So now what I'm going to do is just work my way through this side. Is that good for the top angle? Yeah. So I'm going to work through this side, and I'm going to keep it straight out here. So there's my guide that falls. I'm going to pinch this together, and we're going to go back to doing our tease cutting.
Are you using these techniques just so you are creating better texture?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm using these techniques to create better texture and also show you the techniques.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily do these techniques only in a haircut.
Okay.
Right? So we're creating a haircut with it to show you guys what it does.
Some people might be coming on a little later. Just
that's fine.
Reconfirming.
Yeah, it's great.
And then would you say these are triangle layers? Sorry.
This is a triangular cut.
Okay.
Right? So we are...
Well, that's kind of what I was going to... Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So we are over-directing everything backwards. And so anytime you over-direct, if you go to the top view, Chris, cool,
Okay.
you're there.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So anytime you over-direct everything to the back, what's going to happen is it pushes the weight to the front. So you get a triangle. So that's why they call it triangular. So if I bring everything here, it pushes the weight here. So then you have this triangular shape. If I wanted to cut square, I bring everything in the back to me in a line. Then I shift all the way over to the side, and I bring everything back to me in a line. And that creates a box, a square. If I wanted to create a round shape, I would follow the head shape. I would take my partings, and I would bring it out, and I would follow every step of the way the head shape, which creates round. So we talk about our shape. Our shape was horizontal. So whether it's here, or just triangular or circular, that's the shape. Then you talk about weight distribution vertically, and that's your elevation. So then you make combination cuts. So I could have a triangular layered haircut or a triangular graduated haircut, and that's how you break it up. So I continue creating that triangular shape, over directing everything back. Then when I get it back here, this is working with a stationary guide now. I bring it back and cut it. Same thing, last section. Bring it back and cut. So that's the tease cutting technique. Then, again, we have a kind of a broken edge to the cut. I'm going to shift you, Carly. Hang in with me. It's like that. So now I've got this broken edge. So what I'm going to do is go in, cut along my line, and I'm going to let that extend off just a bit, right? So that gives me texture, movement, and all of that. Move the hair around a bit. Go through just with the tip of the scissor. That is the great thing about the puffin, is the fact that it does still have a pointy tip even though it's thicker. So a lot of thicker scissors just have a thick blade or a thick point as well. All right, we can drop that side.
So how do you know if you're over directing?
So that's a good question. So over directing to me is anything beyond 0. Now, that doesn't mean you can never cut anything beyond 0. What it means is if you're going to cut beyond 0, lower than 0. So let's say, yeah, zoom way out, Thad. Thank you. Thad, you're the best being here. Okay, so 90, you're the best too. Sorry, I'm taking you for granted.
I'm teasing.
All right, so 90, 0, right? So no matter where I go in the head, this is 90, this is 0. If I go to the side of the head, this is 90, this is 0. This is lower than 0, just on this portion. Now, as the head shape curves down, this is 90, now 0 is straight down. A lot of people cut, and they call it a 0-degree haircut, but they cut everything flat around. That to me is a 1-length haircut, but not a 0, because 0 is a degree and this is a round surface. So over directing to me is when you take a section of hair. Let's say that we're going to over direct it all the way back. So I take this and I start working. This is a round surface. So now once I get to this point here, right? This is, let's call it 90 degrees in this part of the head, right? Now, as soon as I get to this point and I over direct it all the way back to the back, that's where people do that really extreme triangular cut. It makes no sense because what happens is you go around this corner and this corner all the way back to this corner. So now you've got it way beyond 0. It pushes all that heavy weight to the front, and now you've got the dog ear effect, which I made a video about also on YouTube. So the dog, yeah. So you just want to make sure you don't over direct. So what I would do is once I get to that corner, then I start bringing everything back to that corner. So I shift my guideline from what was center back to now this corner. And then as I work my way around the head, I do the same exact thing. That allows me to not over direct and not get too much weight within the haircut. That's the reason that now as I work to the side here, I bring everything, I'll comb it like that. I bring everything out just like this. You've got your guide. I don't see it. So I grab my guide from the back. This is where the hole would be, right here. And I bring it out, and that's where I start to cut instead of bringing this whole entire section all the way back. You could do that. It's just going to be a lot of unneeded or unwanted weight within the cut. So now you'll see that I kind of backhand comb this. You won't see because the camera gets to shut off. That's the camera taking a break. It needs its, yeah. So we bring it back just like that. Now the heavier you tease in with this, the lighter it is as well. So it's a great versatile technique for creating really broken effect as well. And you'll see I take my section. This is what I tried to show you before. Now when I bring it out like this, I backhand bring it to me. So that keeps it consistent with the other side. I comb the new hair to the guide, just like that. Okay. Same thing here. Backhand, bring it back to me. And we'll leave that length. Now I want to show you guys the craziness that happens when you do tease cutting. You can see on the edge, there's all kinds of stuff, right? That's just a broken edge. So what I'm going to do is go in and form it exactly the way that I want it. So people worry too much about the perimeter during the cut. I like to worry about all of that at the very end because that's the finalization of the cut.
With both dry and wet?
Yep. Well, I would take a wet cut and dry it. And the perimeter will be, you know, broken or whatever. And then I go in with the point of the scissor and create my line. And the good thing is, because you've done all of this, I don't want it to be that long in the front. Because you've done all of this tease cutting, it gives you a broken edge, so it's very simple to go in and just do this cut with the point of the scissor. And she's going to wear this textured, so just kind of keep moving the hair around and see where it wants to lay. And creating your line in there.
Somebody asked earlier about tease cutting and if it was good for all hair types, fine, coarse, medium.
I really think it is. I mean, you got to be careful with fine hair because it's more fragile, but it's also skinnier, and this technique really skinnies hair up. But it also does create texture, so if you use it the right way on fine hair, it works really well. But if you do it too much on fine hair, you're going to find yourself really with thin outline on the haircut.
Somebody was asking, where did you learn to cut with these techniques, because it's not easy. I was just going to write, he just practices and practices.
Yeah, you just practice all the time. I mean, the reason we started a YouTube channel was to cut mannequins. It was never to get lots and lots of followers at the beginning. I mean, it was literally just we liked practicing on mannequins, and we would meet every Wednesday night and do a training. Thad was one of those stylists, and we would cut mannequins together. And then when that training was over,
I think we found too there was a huge demand of the basics of hair cutting that people didn't understand.
Yeah.
Like that was a lot of the questioning.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I was a Paw Mitchell educator for a really long time, so I learned a lot doing that. I think just being around people, you know, like Carly's just starting out. She just graduated. So, like, being in these kind of environments and, like, just soaking up a few tips here and there, you just learn them. And then I always loved doing things a little bit different, like not different, but the techniques that I would see that kind of stuck out, like stroking technique, tease cutting, no thumbs, which I'm going to show you guys in a second. Like all these different techniques I learned from other people. I didn't make them up, and they were just interesting to me.
I mean, I can honestly say I met you, I guess, 2 months after you graduated or so.
Yeah.
And you really did just go to like every hair show or convention and followed shadow people, asked if you could just go and help and learn. And a lot of those you didn't get paid.
Yeah, I just loved, yeah. I think it's a cool thing when you're obsessed with your job. Like when you just love what you do, you just practice a lot. I remember coming home from beauty school and I had seen at my first hair show somebody flipping their scissors around, and like I was so obsessed with doing it, which is so silly now that I think about it, because it's not like a really cool thing or anything, but I remember wanting to do it so bad. I was sitting there watching TV and I didn't even have hair cutting scissors. I was using like big old like paper cutting scissors, but just watching TV and practicing spinning the scissors around. And then when I got back to school, of course, I'm doing the stroking technique on my old lady and trying to learn how to twirl the scissors while I cut. And, you know, it was more about the show part for me. And then when I really learned what precision cutting was and just understanding hair cutting, then it becomes an obsession, like really fun, you know, like because you can create anything you want when you know why you're doing it. So that's kind of the first part. You know, it's fun, it's broken, it's a longer kind of shattered bob. You could go in with an iron, like a curling iron, and wear this really textured, so it's pretty popular. But now I want to show you guys another texturizing technique. Now we're texturing this thing like crazy, so I wouldn't do all of these techniques again on every single person. So here's no thumbs. So this is a technique that's pretty simple, but it takes some practice. So you take your ring finger and you put it in the hole. You take your thumb out of the hole. There you go. So ring finger in the hole, thumb out of the hole, no thumbs, got it? Pointer finger in the hole, pinch it with your thumb, and then what you're going to do is you're going to open up and close down. Open up, close down, just like that. So then you turn that into a quick movement like this. Then you take the hair and you lift it and you cut as you go in. And you'll see little hairs. You see this, Carly? You can attest to this, right? Little hairs falling out. So as you work your way up, it's texturizing, but it's not taking like a ton of hair out. It's just a little bit. So it creates some air in the shape. So I'll just lift it up with my hand. There's no rhyme or reason to what I'm cutting, but I will look through and just see if I see bulky areas anywhere. Maybe somewhere where I did too much over direction, right? And I just go through and I point cut into it with the no thumbs technique. So that is that one. So open up. You're opening up into the hair. See if I can turn a little bit. Nope. Like that. So opening. See if we can get that scissor in focus. Cool. Great. So opening up, grabbing some hair, closing into it, and pulling out. Opening up, closing into it, coming out. Just like that. Open up, close.
And what if this is something that somebody has to practice and practice before they get right? What if they wanted the same result? Could they use a different technique?
Honestly, I don't really think you could do it with a clipper, which some people do. You think so?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I don't
that's intimidating to the client, probably.
I know. You just use a clipper and whip it back and forth. Don't do that one. If you can't do this, you don't have to do this. This isn't.
So just really practice before.
Yeah, practice it a lot. Practice it on mannequins.
Is it going to make a big difference, though, by how much?
It doesn't make a huge difference. To me,
is it more show?
It's more show.
Okay.
But also, you are seeing those little pieces of hair falling, and it's very difficult to get that effect. So, like, if I used a thinning scissor, you get way too much hair coming out, no matter which one you use.
Someone said maybe a razor.
A razor, maybe, but again, you're not taking individual pieces of hair out. You're taking more of a chunk of hair.
Okay.
But, you know, we do have, like, the carving comb, which you could take.
Hey, Matt, I have an analogy for this.
Okay.
Can you hear me on this one?
Uh-huh.
Cool. Okay, so if we're looking at dry cutting as a signature,
yeah,
we've signed in cursive. Our signature looks fantastic. Like the haircut, by all practical means, is done. And you know how people, after they finish their signature, like for like an autograph, will then put some additional lines, like maybe underneath it,
okay,
or around it? That's what that technique is to me.
Okay.
Like, it's the haircut is done. It's texturized. It's fun. This is making it a little bit more extra fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So
it's just all the little details, you know, that separate your haircuts for sure. I also like doing this carving comb wise. You could bring it up just like this. The carving comb has two different. Can you zoom in on that, Thad? Less on me, more we. There we go. Can you turn the brightness down a bit? So this is the carving comb. It's got two different cutting sides, right? So a lot of you guys that follow us for a long time maybe have gotten one of these. It's like a $40 tool, $45 something, on Free Salon Education. But it's cool because it's got wide teeth, so it's great for dry cutting. So you can go through. I grab up a section just like this, and then it's got two cutting sides. It's got the full cutting and a partial 50% carving side. So what I could do with this is just go through and bounce back and forth, and that creates this kind of light, takes just little pieces of hair out. Can you zoom way in on that, Thad? Let's see if we can see some of this hair fall. So this is a little bonus one. This is not part of my dry cutting with scissor. So here's the hair. So you can see that's the broken line, right? There you go. And then I got my carving comb with the two different cutting sides, and I just work back and forth. And you can't really see the hair falling out, but when I comb this back out, you can see that it starts to break it up a little bit. So this would be a good technique if you just wanted to soften up the edge of a textured bob. They call it point cutting with the carving comb, but it works really well. Okay. The next, did I throw my scissor away? There it is. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about is point cutting. It's like the thing that everybody has questions about, but it's not as like flashy of a technique, but there's a good way to do it. So here's the first thing. Take your section. Again, this isn't really like part of a haircut, so
Do you want the top angle or the?
let's do this angle first and
Okay.
then the top angle. So here's our shape, right? Now when I go in, if I go in vertically like this, I take out less weight. So just like this, I'm just softening the hair. If I go in like this, I'm now taking chunks out of the hair. It happens faster, but you get a more jagged edge on the cut. Now, the way that I talk about point cutting, because a lot of people will take their elbow and they'll hike it up just like this, and they'll cut like this. What that's doing, first off, your steady blade is right here. So then you got this blade that comes in, just kind of kicks the hair. So you don't get as much of a precision feel to it. Also, no one is comfortable with their elbow up here like this. So to do this correctly, what you do is you point towards your buddy and then back at your body like this. And then you go in and your steady blade stays on your hand. So you never have to worry about cutting yourself because you've got that steady blade hitting your finger, and then the other blade is coming through and just taking the hair that way. So that's the best way for me to point cut. So you point ahead, point back at yourself, and that's how you go in. See where my elbow's at? As opposed to this, it's like this. So just go through and cut. So that way you can soften the hair if you want to, and you can also really take chunks out of the hair if you want to as well. It depends on how you angle the scissor. Okay, last thing I want to show you guys is cutting the fringe. I'm going to show you guys a trick on that, and I'm actually going to use, I don't think I have the DB, yeah, I don't think I have the DB20 with me for some reason, but DB20 would be the scissor I would choose for. That's okay, because I want the nano powder metal, which is a different type of metal that Mizutani, it's on the higher end scissor. It grips the hair as it cuts. So actually, let me show you this line. Sorry, Thad, I'm going to zoom a little bit. So the first thing I want to show you is what a dry cutting scissor does. It has more slide to it than cut. So if I go in here and I go to cut this bit of hair, so I take up a chunk of hair just like this. Good. So I take my dry cutting scissor, which has more of a push to the hair, and I go in and I cut this section. So you can see how it's pushing the hair? So it pushes the hair along. So this line that you get is, there we go. This line that you get starts short, starts straight, then goes up. That's where you've got your thickest part of the blade is cutting a straight line, and then the tip, which gets weaker, cuts a graduated line because of the fact that it's weaker and it's not crisp cutting through it. Now the nano powder metal, which is in the DB20, which is one of my favorite scissors. It's also in the Pen Slim scissor, which is this guy, super skinny. Super skinny, but because it's nano powder metal, you get this full kind of cut to it. So now watch how this, so now you can see how this scissor cuts. Oh, hang on, so here. So see how it gives you a harder line, and that line is not coming, it just cuts it right off. So you don't have to, I'll show you again. So grab a chunk of hair here. So as I go across, oh, missed one. You get this straight cut, and when I do it with a dry cutting scissor, or let's say a cheaper precision cutting scissor, I go through and cut, and it just gives it more of a jagged edge, which is kind of hard to see. But you can see it's got more bumps in it. So you want to make sure that when you pick your scissor, that it makes sense with what you're trying to do. Nano powder metal is going to give you more precision cut. Softer metals like I forget what, cobalt is a pretty common thing. It's like 3 different types of metals smashed together. Nano powder metal is consistent molecules throughout the haircut. And then the puffin is a cobalt scissor, so the molecules are a little bit different. So as they go together, it's just a little bit more inconsistent, and we go through and it pushes it a bit. So that is my scissor definitions. So we're going to go through, cut the fringe. That's what I'm doing. I knew I was doing something. So here we go. Last thing, the grand finale is going through here. I want to cut a straight fringe. That's why I'm picking the nano powder metal, because I don't want any push to the hair. I lift up the hair with my scissor. I set it into the comb, the wide teeth of the comb, and I elevate it just a little bit. We talked about head shape, right? Head shape, if I lift it too high like this, now I'm graduating, or I'm layering some of this hair. So I don't want to lift it too high and cut it. I also don't want it too low, because now this is way beyond 0. 0 would be straight out from the head, just like that, right? So I take a little bit of this hair in my hand. Snap that back. Then as I get the hair into the comb, I work across, just like this. And what I like to do is just kind of define the line, get it as perfect as possible as I'm working my way through. And because I'm using the tip, you get a little bit more of that push, but I don't want to use the inside of the scissor too much. I'm just looking to work a little bit at a time and cut my line. So I start with the elevation high, and then just start to drop it and soften the line as it comes down. Bring some more hair out. Go a little bit more.
Just wanted to let you know we had people from all over watching today, and that a lot of compliments to you on your explaining.
Oh, awesome.
So you could send shout outs and
Well,
thank yous. I'm thanking them on here too for you, but
I really appreciate everybody tuning in, and I hope you guys like this style of video, because it's something I would definitely like to do more. I like the live class aspect. We built this studio really for that reason. So and like we said before, this video is will be available for playback. So anything you want to see or try out, use a little bit. This is actually Paul Mitchell Neuro Protect, but it's got a light hold. It'll show you guys the texture.
they love being able to ask the questions throughout. We had someone shouting out from Northern Ireland.
Oh, wow.
Turkey, Argentina.
Very cool.
And how far do you know how to go? How far with the band or fringe area? Is it based on the head shape? They were taught from apex to the corners of the eyes to determine the fringe.
I think that going from just the corner, the edge of the eyebrow is a good starting point, and then you can decide if you want to take it further. But I feel like what you want to do is really square off and open up the face and just hug the cheekbone right there. So if you come over to the edge of the eyebrow, that's typically right at the cheekbone as well. Any further in, then you start to get sideburns, right? So as you work across, you want to stop in there.
We had a lot of love from India. They would love for you and Guy Tang to come over.
To do a collaboration?
Mm-hmm.
I would love to go to India. Tell Guy Tang that. All right. I feel like that's cool, right? Pretty cool. Got a neat look to it. Almost like shag a bit. Okay, sweet. So, hope you guys like the video. Is this camera still working?
The top view?
This guy in front of me.
Sure.
Yeah. So, thank you to Carly, Thad. Thank you for coming as well in here. This took a whole team. Christina's over there as well. The puppy's sleeping. But I really appreciate you guys, again, hanging in here, watching it live. If you would like to see more videos like this, if you actually, I'm sure you guys enjoyed it, but is this a good time? Like Tuesday afternoons, I think we would like to do this. Let us know. So, yeah. Is there anything else?
No, I think that was it. I think the last question was, do you go straight across, kind of hug the cheekbone, almost like it's a face frame to have a better flow to the bang? I think that was the only last question.
I mean, I based it off of the side bang that she had. So all this hair is kind of flowing over. So I just combed it down naturally where it would live forward and cut it at that point to the eyebrow. And then you step back, you take a look at it.
Yeah, I was going to say it's up to them too. Like creatively, someone could do that haircut and have it look a little bit different, a less bang, not as heavy,
For sure. So,
but Tuesdays and Mondays seem like it's a good day for some people.
Yeah, I'm excited about Tuesdays because Thad's here on Tuesdays, and Tuesdays just seem to be. We're gonna call it something with Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. So thank you guys so much. Make sure you subscribe and hit that little bell icon on the video, because if you hit the bell, you'll get reminded of whenever we go live or post a video or anything like that, so that you guys can jump on here as soon as it's happening. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys next time.